While I believe that it is true that no one can take your creativity away from you, it is true that there are those who sure try. So take this, for example. I am in 7th grade art class. We were working with clay, and I don't remember exactly what the assignment was, but I just remember I was having fun creating, if I recall correctly, a tiny little gas station out of the red clay. Suddenly, the vice principal, who was wandering around the classroom for some unknown reason, sat down next to me. He looked at my little bits of clay and asked me what I was doing. And I explained about my gas station. "That's the dumbest idea I've ever heard," he said. "You clearly don't have much talent, do you?" Well, I felt as if I'd been punched. I can still feel the anger and the shame in my 7th grade heart. And 7th graders can feel shame better than anybody. Now, I knew I wasn't much good at art. I never could draw, but I kind of liked working with clay. Somehow the 3-dimensional aspect of it made it easier for me. But after that day, I never made anything. My creative spark was effectively doused. Now, I was lucky in that there were other areas in which I could be creative. I sang in the choir and was a stalwart member of the school's drama group. How surprised are you about that? Yet I wonder what creative opportunities were lost to me because some insensitive took it upon himself to quash my artistic pursuits. For over 40 years now, I have resisted most attempts to create art with my hands. Whenever I try to do so, I become that 7th grade student again. I feel ashamed and no good. Since I have no talent, I must not make a fool of myself with my silly amateur attempts at sculpture or drawing or anything else. No one will like them anyway. What that man did to me, and others have perhaps done to you, I expect, was not only insensitive and cruel. I think he committed a crime against my spirit. Now, I realize these are strong words, but I believe they are true ones. Because in my mind, the creative spark that leads to art and engineering and science and all kinds of human endeavor is not simply talent or skill, as important as that is. I believe that the spark of creativity is holy and is one of the most important aspects of our humanness. I believe that the human spirit is blessed with extraordinary creativity, and it is through this creativity that some of the best elements of humanity emerge. And I believe that when we take risks to open ourselves to deeper and more challenging creativity, we become better and more spiritually centered people. Though I know there are many, many ways to be creative, creativity is still mostly associated with the arts in our culture. So let me reflect for a moment on this connection between art and spirituality. Artists have often struggled to understand their art in relationship with the divine. Now, we all know that some of the best art ever created is religious art. Yet art has been, to a large degree in our modern culture, separated from religion. These days, few artists speak about their spiritual longings, and many religious leaders have little positive to say about art or music except to criticize it for mocking their values. Yet I believe art and religion are powerfully connected. And one source that helped me to understand this connection was a book written almost 50 years ago by the great writer Chaim Potok. Some of you may have read his more familiar books, The Chosen and, the other one with a one-word name, which I can't remember. But my favorite of all his books is called My Name is Asher Lev. Have any of you read it? Anybody read My Name is Asher Lev? Oh, then you're in for a treat this morning. Like so many of Potok's novels, this book invites us into a world unfamiliar to most of us, the world of very conservative Hasidic Jews religious Jews called Hasids. Now, Asher Lev is an Hasidic Jew, and he's born in Brooklyn, New York, shortly after the Second World War and the Holocaust. His father is a traveler who moves around the world trying to save Jews from the fate of the 6 million. And it is very serious business. When Asher Lev is born, it is assumed he will follow in his father's footsteps. But instead, Asher discovers in himself the gift for art. Not talent, not skill. Asher Lev is blessed or cursed with an extraordinary ability to draw and paint, not unlike the young Mozart's amazing capacity for music. This gift was unasked for and in many ways undesired. His artistic ability made him suspect in the conservative religious community where he was born and raised, a community which did not appreciate the remarkable ability that he had. Yet Asher Lev could not deny the call to his art. He knew his father didn't understand it. He felt his mother's pain as she tried to encourage him without angering her husband, and he bore the taunts of his classmates. He did so because he could not deny the powerful force that was his artistic creativity. When for a short period he gave up his art, it almost killed him. Only when he answered the call could he become whole and grow into his humanness. But it didn't come without a cost. Asher Lev, the artist, the creator, was torn asunder by the power of his artistic gift. He discovered how truly difficult it was in his world, in our world, to understand and answer the call of creativity, particularly when everyone around you insists that what you are doing is wrong, maybe even evil. For it's here where this story becomes truly heart-rending. When he has finally matured in his art, he begins to paint the story of his family and their suffering. Asher Lev, Hasidic Jew, found that he had to use the crucifixion as a metaphor in a series of paintings that featured the faces of his mother and father. For a Jew to use such a symbol was anathema. Yet Asher Lev knew he must answer the call to his truest self, and this true self insisted on the crucifixion, one of the most powerful symbols of suffering, as a metaphor. And in answering this call to his true self, he alienated those he loved the best, his mother and his father. His call to creativity was fraught with pain as well as joy. Yet he found in answering it a connection to the life force that both creates and destroys. In other words, he began to truly understand God through his creativity. At the end of the book, he finds he has to leave his religious community, at least for a while. Chaim Potok writes in the voice of Asher Lev,
I looked at my right hand, the hand with which I painted. There was power in that hand, power to create and destroy. There was in that hand the demonic and the divine at the same time. The demonic and divine were two aspects of the same force. Creation was demonic and divine. Creativity was demonic and divine. Art was demonic and divine. I was demonic and divine. Asher Lev paints good pictures and hurts people he loves.
He then hears the voice of God reply, "Then be a great painter, Asher Lev. That will be the only justification for all the pain you will cause. Journey with me, my Asher. Paint the anguish of all the world. Let people see the pain." Asher Lev does so, even though to answer the call of his art is excruciating. He learns that authentic art is not always beautiful or easy. But he discovers that through his call to creativity, he becomes fully human and also fully connected to the divine. He learned that his spirit could only be whole when he fully embraced his creativity. Now, I know that most of us are not born with this kind of artistic gift. There are always only a small number of humans alive at any time who manifest such rare and extraordinary talent in any given field. But all of us are blessed with the ability to create, the ability to be creative. It's an essential part of our humanity. And how our creativity manifests itself is as unique as our individual spirits. Extraordinary artists can intimidate us and make us think that only they can be truly creative. Yet even those of us who are not exceptionally talented in certain areas can bring to our lives the gift of creative impulses. But too often, our creativity may be stifled by ignorant people like my 7th grade principal. Too often, many of us won't try something creative because we know it won't sound or look perfect. Our culture too often tells us that you have to be supremely talented or an expert to be an actor, a dancer, a designer, or anything in the creative fields. Yet how many of us would just love to share our gifts because our spirits long to? Now, of course, we want an expert to design and build a bridge for us. But what creativity is lost because someone is not allowed to put on paper or in building blocks a creative idea that just might work? Accessing such creativity is possible. Some years ago, a news story on creativity spoke of how, when the Corning Glass Company was moving its facility, they did the unprecedented thing of asking the employees to come up with some of the creative ideas for the design of the new building. The employees knew much better than the architect did what would work for them. Now, yes, the architect ultimately designed the building, but he did so using the creative ideas of the employees who were going to work there. The result? People loved their new working environment and morale soared. Well, that's creativity. Creativity is also found in the teacher who willingly changes the lesson plan when the class discovers a spider worth watching. It's found in the community activist who brings people together in new ways, eliciting positive changes in the neighborhood. It's found in the poet who chooses this word, not that, and pronounces it just right. It's found in the company IT expert who creates a program, making it easier to get the work done. It's found in the doctor who discovers a new surgical technique that works more effectively but with less pain. It's found in each of us as we go about our daily lives, opening our hearts to the power of the creativity that is all around us. And it's found here, in this church, as we go about the wonderful and awe-filled task of creating religious community. For to create community takes creativity. It takes a willingness to be open to possibility. It takes a passion for people and ideas and feelings. It makes of non-teachers teachers. It makes of non-singers singers, and non-leaders leaders. We are the creative process at work, my friends, and that process, I believe, is holy. It's also scary. Creativity, as Asher Lev discovered, is not always something that moves easily through us. Creativity requires a willingness to take risks. For I believe that creativity is meant to be shared, yet the sharing of it can be awfully frightening. Thus, it's tempting to hide our creativity in a box, never take it out for anyone to see. But I think when we take the risk to share ourselves with others in creative ways, something profoundly spiritual happens. Because our spirits can't grow if we don't take risks. Now, we may fail. In fact, I can tell you with certainty and experience that we will absolutely fail, at least now and again. But such failure is how we learn and grow. And it's also how we exhibit our humanness. So here's another example. Last August, I went to Creative Arts Eliot, which is the newest Eliot camp for Unitarian Universalists in our region. Like all Eliot experiences, it's a warm and welcoming community, and because it is, I decided that I needed to let go of my 7th grade angst and try making some art. Luckily, the instructor that I chose was none other than our own Jilly Watson. Jilly! It was with fear and trepidation that I took part in her painting class. Oh. But I'm so glad I did. One of the exercises had us use a dark canvas and make something geometrical. Now, another student in the class looked at some earrings that I was wearing, and they were the fused glass kind, and they had a flaming chalice pattern on them. And she thought it might make a good model for my painting. And she was right. And in Jilly's class, I made this. Woohoo! I am proud of it. It's something that came from my creativity, but more, it came from a shared connection between darling Jilly, the other students, and the materials that we were given to use. Now, here's a secret. I know I will never be a painter. But I can say with honesty that I created a painting. Woohoo! And it fills my spirit with joy. Huzzah. I don't think it's going to stay. Sorry, you're going to have to take it from me. Anyway, that was hard for me to do. Thanks. Well, I do believe that creativity is an essential way to understand our spirituality. For the simple act of creating anything opens our hearts and spirits to the amazing energy that's embedded in the very heart of the universe. And it's a powerful message that I want to reiterate here. The act of creation, whether a painting or a poem, a dance or a sermon, a lesson plan or a technical design, is one of the most spiritual things that we can do. And why is that? Because our spirituality is, I believe, that part of our being which continually evolves and grows in response to the world around us and the world within us. If we stifle our creativity, we run the risk of smothering our spirits. Spirit needs the lively interaction of creative hearts and hands and minds to keep it alive and growing. People can actually die when deprived of beauty. And I have seen the spiritual death that occurs when people lose or have forced out of them the ability to be creative. So, dear ones, I challenge us all to take the risk of being creative, and let's see what it does to our spirits. Let's celebrate that each of us will express our creativity in our own unique ways, and let's aim to take failure with good humor, learn from our mistakes, and keep trying new things. It's my hope that our church can be a community where our imperfect, creative spirits can find a home. It's my hope that this church can be a place where all people can bring their whole selves, where we can touch the deep spirit of creativity that lives in each of us and in the universe and make it come alive. What we create in our individual lives matters, and what we create here matters too. May we be blessed with an abundance of creativity and use it to make this world just a little more beautiful, a little more exciting, a little more whole. It is in my blood. It is in my body. It is in my blood. It is in my body. No one can take it away from me. Creativity.